They were objectively the worst team to have ever stepped foot in the North American LCS. While they were made up of experienced professional players, they never achieved synergy or momentum. They showcased nothing but blundered gameplay and barren throws. Their only mark in history is having the worst win-loss record in a single season in North America. This video is a full examination on why this team was extremely unsuccessful. We will look at their gameplay failures and analyze the organization's mismanagement and decision making. My name is Kudo, and this is the story of Team Coast, the worst LCS team ever. Team Coast was an esports organization that competed in League of Legends during the early days of the LCS. They were formerly known as Good Game University before changing their name. However, that team was relegated from the LCS in the 2014 Summer Promotion Tournament to Complexity Black. We will talk about the story of that roster in the future. After relegation, the organization was still determined to field a team that could qualify into the LCS. Team Coast's first attempt failed after making a very controversial roster decision. For the 2014 NA Challenger Series, Coast ran with the roster of Rux in the top lane, Santorin in the jungle, Golden Glue at mid, and Mash and Sheep in the bot lane. This roster was able to secure their spot in the 2015 promotion tournament and a chance for the org to get back into the LCS. However, before the tournament, Coast decided to bench Rux and Golden Glue in favor of two untested solo queue Koreans named Miracle and Ringer. This move was met with harsh criticism. Benching two players who helped Coast get into the promotion series and replacing them for two Koreans in the game that mattered the most was not a popular move. Coast eventually lost to Evil Geniuses 0-3 in the best of 5 and did not make it into the LCS. Miracle and Ringer left the team afterwards and never became relevant in the League of Legends pro scene again. Santorin also left Team Coast, leaving the bot lane of Mash and Sheep to stay with the organization. In any other year prior to the LCS franchising, Team Coast would have had to wait until summer to qualify into the LCS again. However, 2015 spring was unique in the sense that the LCS expanded to 10 teams. That meant there was another qualifying tournament called the NALCS 2015 Spring Expansion and gave Team Coast one last chance. Team Coast immediately began forming a new roster. In place of two Koreans were two European imports, Impaler, formerly of Super Hot Crew, and Jezzus, formerly of SK Gaming. Chris, formerly of Velocity Esports, would be the new top laner. Topping off the changes was Elements, formerly of Team Curse, who would sign on to be their head coach. In the spring expansion tournament, Team Coast prevailed in a hard-fought best of 5 against Team Fusion and qualified into the LCS 2015 spring split. The best of 5 series may have shined a positive light on Team Coast coming into spring, but generally speaking they were not predicted to do well. In fact, many considered Coast as the weakest team going into the LCS season. While they may have a lineup filled with LCS veterans, none of these players really made a superstar name for themselves. Even the players recognized this. Impaler stated, "I think we're going to have a tough split and honestly I don't know how well we'll do, so please bear with us. I've got a lot of weight on my shoulders being an EU jungler and I'm sure I'll get a lot of flack from the community. I'll do my best to show that I have a place in the NALCS and really just thanks to everyone who stuck by me." Another thing to note was that Team Coast did not adequately prepare for the start of the season. This was not their fault, however. Due to visa issues, Impaler and Jezzus arrived in the United States the day before the start of the LCS. They did not practice whatsoever as a team beforehand. To add insult to injury, even Coach Elements, who's from Canada, did not arrive. Therefore, the son of the owner of Team Coast, Michael Sland, stood in for him on stage. In the first week of the new LCS year, Team Coast went up against Dignitas and Winterfox. In their first match against Dig, Coast was able to win out the early game. They secured first blood, won multiple skirmishes, and Impaler even stole Dragon. The Rengar pick was key in catching at several Dig players, and that's how Coast was able to grab control of the map. Coast was ahead in the mid game, but as the classic Scarra quote goes, up until Coast loses the game, they're winning. At 36 minutes into the game, Coast went for the Baron, and then this happened.
And they have all the time in the world here to trade for Baron.
I mean, you don't trade this because your Nexus will die.
No,
your Nexus will die. The Baron takes too long to kill. What are they thinking?
That's bad news, Bears. I do not know where that call just came from.
Gamsu can interrupt these, the game's over.
That's not empowered. Transcendent blades through the entire team. That's going to put the nail in the coffin. And after being on their heels for the past 7 minutes, Dignitas is going to take down the Nexus to win their first game of the North American Spring Split.
Wow, Coast with a giant blunder at the end of the game, and Dignitas capitalizes instantly.
Back then, this was considered one of the worst Baron calls in LCS history, and unfortunately this was Team Coast's first impression in the LCS. Their next game in week 1 was against Winterfox, and Coast actually won that. They were able to recover from such a humiliating loss and show dominance throughout the game. They won most team fights and played to their team's composition strength of having heavy engage and hard crowd control. However, there's an asterisk mark when it comes to this one win. Winter Fox had to play with 3 substitutes. Starting players Avalon, Helios, and Imagine all had visa issues and were not able to play this week, so Flair, Shorter Ace, and Glebe subbed in. A win is a win for Team Coast, but it was not against the starting roster. And unfortunately, this was the only win for Team Coast for the entire spring split. Coast went on to lose every single game. To summarize all these losses, Team Coast had horrible shot calling and decision making going into the mid-game. In the games where they were close and sometimes when they had the lead, they would just throw. In week 2, Team A won a game because Mash was out of position and got Morgana binded in the very last team fight.
Just like happened mid.
Oh, Mash make it do with the binding! What a play from Dodo! That could be it! Does it seal the deal, at least for this fight? It's definitely going to force Coast back into their base. This is a great time, however, for Chris to be Mega Nard. They second-guess the fight. They're out! That's going to be Cali Trolls in. He says, team, you got this? They're actually not sure about it. Everybody back in. Make sure you take down Jezzes. Secure the kill. That's a double now.
When Coast went up against CLG in week 4, they were able to shut down Doublelift successfully, leaving him with 0 kills and 3 deaths in the early game. However, in a critical team fight, Coast failed to focus Doublelift and lost the fight.
Nicely set up push by Coast to make that one happen.
Ooh.
Wow, they jump in on top of a ward. 4-man engage. Are they going to have the damage? Smithy gets the first kill, but they're trading back. Doublelift with a double kill so far. He's still alive. They're chasing back onto Chris. He's going to drop as well. What a beautiful fight by CLG despite getting engaged on.
CLG rebounded and won the game. When Coast lost the early game, they could never recover or possess the ability to come back. All they would do is give up more and more of their base until there is nothing left. In their week 3 match against Cloud9, the game ended with a scoreline of 6 kills to 4. The teamwork and macro of Team Coast was the reason this team played so horrendously this split. They cannot close out games as a team, nor recover deficits as a team. By week 5, Coast saw there needed to be some change. On February 17th, Coast announced that Mandatory Cloud, formerly of Team Vulcan, would be the new mid laner and Jezzes would be benched. In the announcement post on Facebook, Coast reiterated that this benching of Jezzes had nothing to do with work ethic or attitude, but the decision was made to bring a player into this important position with a different playstyle. For the record, Jezzes wasn't exactly horrible throughout this time in Coast, he just wasn't the strongest. He was usually down on CS in the early game and he wasn't making any super impactful plays. But the community didn't necessarily think ManCloud would change anything either. ManCloud may have had huge career moments in Season 3, after all he was able to solo kill Dade at Worlds with Team Vulcan. However, when Vulcan became XTG, he and the entire team regressed and was eventually relegated from the LCS. Would this gamble by Coast pay off and turn their season around? Well, not really. In Coast's first match with this roster change against TSM, they surrendered 23 minutes in, the first surrender of the season. Something to know was by this week, the son of the owner of Team Coast, Michael Slan, was still the onstage coach. What happened to Elements? Well, it turned out he never arrived. Elements' visa never showed up. Elements stated on Facebook, "I know a lot of you have been asking when I'll be down or why I wasn't there yet, and that was because I was waiting for my new work visa to show up. Why I am choosing not to go now is because of contractual issues that were unable to be solved, and I don't wish to wait any longer on something that may or may not happen." Next week, there was a new person on stage who took over that spot for the rest of the season. This person was somebody I could not identify. From the sources I have, this person didn't even work for Team Coast. This was a friend of Michael Slan who was told to just go to the studio, put a nice suit on, and look pretty during Champion Select and pregame. Team Coast never had a legitimate coach, just a person who stood in to only look pretty and tell jokes in their comms. At this point of the season, Team Coast gave up. They knew they were destined for last place and automatic relegation from the LCS. Internally, they stopped practicing and overall trying and just flat out gave up. After week 7, another shakeup occurred in the organization. Team Coast purchased Challenger Team Final 5 and made numerous roster changes. This partnership allowed them to switch out players. Impaler and Sheep would go to Final 5 and play in the Challenger Series, while Quan and Welcome to Heaven Time would join Team Coast for the remainder of the season. These changes essentially weakened the Team Coast roster and loaded the Final 5 roster. Team Coast knew their main roster would end up relegated, so they diverted most of their resources into Final 5 in hopes of them qualifying into the summer split. With these changes, Team Coast lost the final 2 weeks of the season. They finished in last place with 1 win and 17 losses. Did the gamble with Final 5 pay off? Absolutely not. Once Impaler and Sheep joined the roster, the team proceeded to lose every single game for the rest of the season. They dropped from 2nd place to 4th, still qualifying for the NACS playoffs. However, they lost to Enemy Esports in the semifinals and lost the 3rd place match against Team Fusion, eliminating them from the LCS Summer Promotion Tournament. A month later, Team Coast and Final 5 separated. Team Coast did eventually form a new roster and qualify into the 2016 LCS Spring Split, but they sold that slot to Energy Esports. The last piece of information that came out about Coast was that apparently one of their house managers stole $3,500 of prize money from the players. This marks the end of the story of the worst LCS team ever. Not only did Team Coast come into the LCS with dim expectations of success, they were practically set up for failure from the beginning. Visa issues impeded any sort of practice before the split and even prevented the team from having a legitimate head coach. With little to no support from the staff, the team could not remedy their gameplay errors before it was too late. Then the organization gave up on them and funneled resources into a challenger team that ended up failing. And caught in the crossfire of all this were the players who came into this team wanting another chance at an LCS run and wanting to prove to themselves that they belong in the league. But instead, it is forever on their record that they were a part of the worst team in LCS history. My name is Kudo, and thank you for watching.
We put this featured party of Primetime League into the books.
Just about, Riv, but first we do need to say goodbye to some pros we've grown to love over the spring split. Last weekend, Team Coast were officially locked into 10th place and, unfortunately, auto-relegation. That means this weekend will mark their final appearance in the North American LCS this year, and before they leave, we wanted to let them know that they'll be missed in our last hit.
We got hand warmers everywhere. You get a hand warmer, I get a hand warmer, everyone gets a hand warmer.
Just look at that picture of Reginald up there if you need inspiration.
Yeah, he's got pretty nice teeth actually.
Nice job.
Nice job, dude.
Nice.
Very nice.
My boy.
Oh,
KDA boys.
Can we surrender? I killed a world champion.
what a beast.
It's all right. We love you.